Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Trey on Stage. Today, I'm going to be talking about performance anxiety and how to get through it, and how I personally get through it whenever I do any kind of stand-up or anything like that. Basically, so you walk up to the stage, you sign up for your stand-up, you get your name called. And now you're walking up to the stage, and right before you go on, what happens? You get a burst of adrenaline. You get really nervous. You don't know if you're prepared. You don't know if anybody's going to laugh. You don't know what's going to happen. And it leads to you sort of blanking out, right? So how do you get through this? Well, me personally, the way I get through it is exposure. I get through it by exposing myself to the stand-up community world constantly, learning from people, learning from other comedians, as well as I learn to get through it by just doing it, by actually just getting out and doing it. So if wherever you are, if you're looking and you can see how many open mics there are, and try to hit up most of them. For example, tonight I might be trying to hit up 2 if I can. There's several of them that are available, but they're not by each other. So logistically, it's not going to make it possible for me to hit them all up. But there's been times when I've did about 3 or 4 in one day. Now, the exposure is going to help you become better whenever you get out there. The exposure to being on stage is going to help you with remembering your jokes, being able to put your jokes out there with confidence. I forgot who it was, but I'm sure it's kind of like sort of a mantra in all aspects of it. But somebody said that you need to think that your jokes are the funniest jokes in the world whenever you go and tell them. And that's exactly what it's going to take when you get up on stage. You have to speak with confidence, because if you don't speak with confidence, especially like on the stage, then the people that are there laughing, or the people that they're wanting to laugh, they're not going to laugh at you, because they're going to see that they're not going to laugh at your jokes, because they're going to see that you're not very confident in the jokes that you have. And the only way to get better is by more exposure, just to continuously go out and just do them over and over and over again. So that exposure is extremely important when you're trying to come up with ways to be more confident in yourself. Whenever I go out and I do stand-up, I always try to breathe first. I'll take some deep breaths in. I'll also before I even go up there, I also try to loosen up a little bit, like they do in theater class. Like in theater class, they tell you to loosen up, like, get like some of these numbers in, just kind of like, just really, really take in what you're about to do, and really accept and enjoy it. That's the number one thing, is because you're going out there to enjoy making people laugh. So what I personally like to do is I kind of get ready. I just sort of, stretch. I kind of will talk to myself. I'll go over these things, and then I'll watch other comedians who are already up on stage and see how the crowd is being. Sometimes in the venues that I've done, the crowds haven't really been too receptive, because they are made up mostly of other comics. But sometimes those comics, they even go there to laugh, right? And that's not all the case. Sometimes there's an open mic at like a bar, and at the bar it could bring in a ton of people, and a ton of people who just want to see some good comedy. Some of my jokes aren't really even that funny. They're really not, and I really treat them like they are the funniest things that's ever been written, just because the confidence is what sells it sometimes. So confidence being a major key in playing the role of selling yourself and selling your stuff. And that's what people want to see. They just want to see that you're up there and you know what you're talking about. You know how your how your act is going to go, that you have a fluid kind of motion. So the way that I write my jokes is I'll have everything sort of fluid. And what I mean by that is that my jokes will tell a story. So when I begin my jokes, I'll start off with like, I can't find a date or something like that. And then it'll go from I can't find a date to, things that I consider to be, boring dates, like going on a Ferris wheel or something like that, or maybe like a movie date or something. And then after that, it kind of flows into just obscure things that I think is kind of funny. Like, so if I mention the Ferris wheel, I'll go into how I think clowns are ridiculous. And then I'll start talking about how silly and stupid clowns are. And then I'll go into, you know, my home life and somehow like in how I was a class clown and, you know, and how I made, you know, like I made class horrible for everybody because I would just sit there cracking jokes. And then I would go on to like how much it annoyed, you know, my family. It was just constant joking and things like that. And so there's a flow to it and there's a recognizable flow. And so in knowing that I have this recognizable flow, it makes life a lot easier on me to be able to get up there and speak with confidence and speak with conviction, most of all. Because like I said, I just want to sell people on my comedy. I want people to believe me when I'm doing it. And the other thing is I'm trying to kind of come up with relatable things that people will want to hear about, because people oftentimes will think the same thing. For example, I have a joke about how Ferris wheels are the most boring ride in the world. They just go up, they just go down. The only thing more boring than being on a Ferris wheel is watching people being on a Ferris wheel. Basically, the whole joke is like, yeah, everybody knows Ferris wheels can be kind of boring. Well, why would I say it? Well, because I make a story out of it. I make it kind of silly and I make it really goofy. And that in of itself will sell it, as long as I sit there and I speak about how much I can't stand Ferris wheels and I can't stand how Ferris wheels are, right? So all of this comes into play. So whenever you're trying to get your stuff together, make sure that you have a good flow. Make sure that you have a good way of doing things to where you feel like your flow is going to be something that is going to work well, you know, for you and for telling your story. Your stories are always very important when you're making your set. Your stories can be very important because, you know, these are the things that people are going to relate to when they go and they listen to you, when they go and they listen to you being, you know, the stand-up comic that you are. You know, you selling yourself is something that can be, it has to be like learned. I feel whenever I'm trying to sell myself, I'm still looking to find what's called like your voice in stand-up comedy. And your voice is the way that you are. And you can see the evolution of it if you look at some of your favorite comics. From their very first thing to their very last thing, you can see how you can see the difference in what it, you know, what they how they write, what they write. You can see the difference in how they perform and what they perform. All of these things come into play. So to come up with the best performance of yourself, you need to find your little voice there. And the only way that you're going to find your voice is through the exposure of going out, getting behind the mic, and basically just putting yourself out there, you know, and failing. I think failing is a number one thing that needs to be accepted more, because when you get up there, you're not going to always make people laugh. Like, people aren't going to always think you're funny, whether it be the crowd, whether it be just you and the way that you're performing your stuff. But all of that is okay, because each and every time you get behind the mic, you're getting better, right? So there's a focal point too that needs to be addressed as well, because you need to write. You need to actually sit down and write your jokes. You need to sit down in front of a computer. You need to sit down in front of a pen and a pad, or just write on your phone, just things that you think are funny, things that you've done that you think are funny. You need to sit down and you need to do all this and be diligent with it, because that is how people are going to think you're funny. Is the stories that will come up, the stories that you come up with are going to be, they're going to eventually become jokes. You know, my jokes, some of my one-liners and things like that I say, some of them, they are products of these long drawn out paragraphs of just an idea that I had that I thought would be really funny. And the long drawn out idea of my jokes slowly gets, what they say on Kill Tony, it becomes like a trim the fat kind of thing. It becomes a smaller a smaller before, and then it becomes the premise, the setup, and the punchline, or it just becomes a setup and a punchline, one or the other, right? So there's an emphasis on writing. There's an emphasis on um, performance. There's an emphasis on exposure, and you need to do all of these things. Go out to your comedy club. It's a part of the grind that everybody talks about. That's what it is. It's going out and putting yourself out there for people. It's going out there, putting yourself out there for yourself, and just getting up behind the mic and not caring what people think. Just saying what you want to say. Of course, that it goes without saying to, be tactful in the way that you do your performances. Don't go up there thinking that you should say racist remarks, or anything like that. Just try to get up there and be the best version of yourself that you can be. The process of exposure is just, and the constant grind is part of what makes this so much fun. Just getting up in front of people and performing, just getting up in front of people, grabbing a mic and just performing. Remember to rehearse, rehearse your stuff at home, rehearse it until you know it. And if you don't know it, don't be afraid to bring up a notepad or something like that on the stage. That's what I do. But I save it for, the big show that I might be doing. Like if I get a 10-minute set or something like that, then I don't want to bring a notebook up there. I want to be polished. I want to be, I want to put my best foot forward and make people laugh and things like that. So all of this goes into the grind. If you ever have any questions, you can hit me up and I will guide you the best way that I know how. Once again, I'm not a professional comedian or anything like that, but this is a part of the journey that I'm doing. So if you've made it this far, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you, each and every one of you. Just remember to like, subscribe, do all that follow stuff and everything. And I will see you next time on Trey on Stage. Thank you for tuning in.